Thank you very much, Manishji. Thank you, Kiran. Tried to explain to me the meaning of imbue. Kiranji said, relate to innovation. And it could also mean what Shekhar Bhai is going to do for the rest of the day is instigate. And possibly, by the time the evening comes and you're tired of all the speeches and you're through with me, some of the business leaders like Kumar and some bureaucrats in the afternoon, then you'll all get invigorated with Deepika Padukone over here. But truly a pleasure. Thank you, Director of the IIM Bangalore, for your kind words. I wish my professors had told me not to take the professors so seriously. But I do take you seriously. I understand it's been a year since the director has been appointed. It could also mean that we take this job very seriously and we try to make sure we get you a good director, so we're not hurrying into the process. But my wife always warns me, don't interfere in too many departments because I can be quite disruptive, and then you don't want the HRD to get disrupted, right? You want it to run smoothly, so I'd rather not help you get a director, but I'm sure somebody must be on the way or some appointment must be on the way. Pleasure to be amongst all of you in Bengaluru, a wonderful city, and I was just reading the day's proceedings for the next 2 days. It's going to be an interesting program. It's been a journey of 2.5 years for me in the power sector. And really they may call it 2 or 3 ministries, but the reality is all of it put together is just about one power sector. Coal predominantly serves the power sector. Renewable energy, I don't know why we should look at it distinct from the power sector. Maybe at some point of time to give it impetus or thrust, they may have kept it separate. But to my mind, we should now have power and renewable energy joined as one ministry, because the way the world is moving today, they're going to get more and more conscious about clean energy, green energy, and change is all about. Of course, since you said you were a professor of finance, not economics, because a noted economist who had also said that in the long run we are all dead. I'm referring to John Keynes, by the way. And of course, I think, Shekhar Bhai, we need not have gone to John Keynes all the way to figure it out. The Bhagavad Gita would have taught us the same. That we are living in today, the changing dimension of government, the changing style of government, the change in the mindset of our nation today, the fact, just like Kiran spoke about the 3 Bs, referring to the Bay Area, Bengaluru and Beijing, I think the nation is now moving towards an era of confidence, an era of commitment, and an era of conviction. And that, ladies and gentlemen, define what we are trying to do, what we have been mandated to do by the people of India. And to my mind, this cannot happen unless we are willing to change the way we work, change the way we think, and change the way we engage with the nation. It's a government which is reformist, yet pro-poor. I remember Finance Minister Mr. Jaitley, in one of his early interventions after this government was sworn in, had proclaimed that we are pro-business and pro-poor. And there's nothing that holds one against the other. They both can coexist. They both need to coexist. We need to have a situation where honest business fuels the development of the nation, progress, growth, And that progress and growth ultimately leads to a better quality of life for the people of India, particularly for the poor of India. In fact, the ideology to which my party subscribes, as distinct from the typical capitalism or socialism or communism that we hear of in different parts of the world, believes in the philosophy of integral humanism, Ekatma Manavvad. Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay, one of the founding fathers of the Bharatiya Janasangh, which was our original party, 50 years ago had espoused the concept of integral humanism. And when he spoke of integral humanism, he spoke about the holistic development of a human being, where a person cannot be happy only with material wealth, only with success in making money, not necessarily also only by an ostensibly good quality of life, but it's a holistic view of the society one lives in, the family that we are blessed with, the neighborhood, the country, the value systems that bring us up. Each one of us may practice one or the other religion, may even be an atheist. Whatever gives us satisfaction, spirituality, leisure, sport, every dimension of a person's life makes up for a person's happiness. And 50 years later, today the world is now recognizing. We now measure the gross happiness index. It's something which was articulated 50 years ago, that a person can never be happy unless you look at his comprehensive requirements, all that a human being requires to make him happy. And with that philosophy, when we set out to make the people of India happy, give them a better quality of life, meet the multifarious dimensions of a person's requirements, I believe the power sector, electricity, became a fulcrum in that effort to make the people of India happy, give them a better quality of life. Because clearly, and there are so many studies to show this or validate this theory, a home, a household which has electricity available, preferably round the clock, 24/7, actually plays a transformational role in the development of a human being, in the development of a person's life, in his future well-being, in the well-being of his family. And therefore, one of the first priorities of the new government was to ensure that we can provide power for all, affordable, quality, and sustainable. And each of these three dimensions, the affordability, continuous access, the fact that it should be uninterrupted and not the way large parts of India has been receiving it for so many years, and clearly also reflect our concern for the environment, our concern for the well-being of the planet. And within that, not wait for achieving it by 2030, as is articulated in the Sustainable Development Goal, goal number 7, that was finalized last year, where the thought of giving affordable energy access to all the people of the world by 2030 has been floated for the first time. In the earlier Millennium Development Goals, we didn't have this. But this time around, energy has been recognized as a very important development goal criteria to assess where the world is going. Only difference is Prime Minister Modi was not willing to give it 16 years before we can achieve that. And therefore we set out with the task of achieving affordable energy access for all by 2022, when India completes 75 years of independence. of course, given the great deal of support that I have received from all sections of society, from the people of India, from different governments at different levels, save and except one or two, I now feel empowered to make a commitment that we should be able to do it by 2019 itself, a good 3 years ahead of our old plan. And when I engage with world leaders across continents, I find the interest that they have in seeing the way India has evolved in the energy sector clearly shows that there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of excitement around what we are doing in India. And I'd like to share with you what is the philosophy behind our various actions to try and get the power sector off its feet. In some sense, to also be able to articulate on the theme of my talk today, which was to talk about energize and transform, the leadership mantra for a mature institution. Clearly, I feel transformation would not be complete unless we ideate. And ideas would not be possible unless we engage. And that's been the journey of the last 2.5 years. It's been a journey of learning. As somebody introduced, I'm not even a person who understands technology or the power sector at all. My own background, other than the first 10 or 12 years that I ran an industry, did not give me enough exposure to this sector. But I think possibly that became my biggest strength in trying to change the way things work. Very often when you are in a groove and you tend to look at things within that groove, it's very difficult to accept change. It's very difficult to look at disruption or innovative ideas and thoughts. And one tends to go deeper and deeper into that groove. I remember when we used to run industry, when I was actively engaged in the family business, I'm talking about 15 or 16 years ago. One day my father just said, get my nephew in. We spent 2 days roaming around the factory, and at the end of 2 days do a debrief with him. We were a little amazed and we thought that it didn't make sense. He's a kid who's still in school. But nevertheless, we went along. And I promise you, some of the insights we got at the end of those 2 days from that young boy were so innovative, were so refreshing. There was a newness in his thinking. There was a completely orthodox approach to what he saw, which possibly for somebody like me would spend 16, 17 hours at the factory every day, was nearly impossible to imagine that I would have seen it in that fashion, in that way. And therefore, a new person in a technical or a technically oriented ministry probably became a strength to be able to think afresh, to be able to look at the way things were done with a new perspective. And this 2.5-year journey in which we have been able to take the nation from perpetual shortages of coal, perpetual energy deficit for nearly 66, 67 years since independence, to a country which has assured supply of sufficient coal and is an energy surplus, power surplus state within a span of about 18 months, was a truly exciting journey, was truly a very, very enjoyable journey that I've gone through. And in this journey, the end result came not because we did some fantastic or something really unheard of or unbelievably unique. It was just the implementation of all those management principles which IIM Bangalore teaches you in the working of the government. Other than that, I claim absolutely no innovation or nothing unique to be able to take the country from perpetual shortages to a situation where my marketing director of Coal India Limited today is literally going with a bowl in his hand trying to sell coal from a situation where he would sit in his air-conditioned office and dictate terms to the whole world who wanted coal from him. All that it took was application of some of those principles that, in fact, I have come to IIM Bangalore for a short program. I think I spent a week or so here. Professor Balasubramaniam was there? Was he there? Yeah. So I remember many, many years ago, I've attended a program at IIM Bangalore. Do I qualify to become an alumni? And all these lessons we picked up, some of it in my school, college days, some of it maybe at my days at IIM, or all the work that I got a chance to do, really helped us provide that leadership that the power sector, that the coal sector and the renewable energy sector were yearning for. And if I may try to put together those experiences in about 10 bullet points, with maybe an example or two thrown in or to reflect what I mean, it may help to summarize why I believe business, government, maybe even journalism, social work, in every field, the same principles can make a humongous difference to the outcomes that we receive. And one of the first and most important rules of the game that I learned was that you will have to provide decisive leadership. You can't vacillate, you can't provide, you really need to take decisions, and you need to take timely decisions. You cannot sit over files, you cannot let things happen, you cannot hope things will set themselves right. And it is that decisive leadership that has been the hallmark of this government in the last 2.5 years, some of which Shekhar Bhai does not like, some of which he appreciates. But truly, the fact that this government and its leadership is willing to take bold decisions has been one of the defining features of this government. And I remember there were so many things where files and committees and discussions and debates, and it was getting to the point of becoming sickening. It needed to sit in a room, take decisions and move forward. I mean, I can share an example in the hydro sector. It's a sector which has still not come out of its problems. There was a plant in Sikkim called Teesta. It's a 1200 megawatt hydro project which was stalled when I became a minister. And it was 92 or so, 92% complete. 9,000 crores were invested in that company. There were 6 international private equity investors. And the management was fighting with the investors, was fighting with the state government, they were fighting with the lenders, engineers, they were fighting with the bankers, they were fighting with the EPC contractors. It was in a complete state of disarray and standstill. Then it came to my attention, and I believe after all it had been stalled for some time before I became a minister. I decided to call all the stakeholders in my office. Though it's not my job, I mean, sitting in Delhi as the power minister in Delhi, I really have no role in that plant. It's a private plant. Tomorrow, I don't know, Shekhar Bhai may write an article alleging that I have interfered in a private company's working being in government. But I thought it is a national waste. It is criminal. 6,000 crores invested by the private sector, bankers, all the bankers. It could be private, public sector or government banks. About 3,000 odd crores invested by mostly the private sector. A little bit was by a company which had some ownership of the central government, but completely at loggerheads with each other. We got them on the table, got each one to have their say, talk to everybody, listen to everybody. and then took some decisions which were acceptable to none of the people in the room. And obviously, when you are resolving an issue, it can't be a solution that is going to be acceptable to you. It's going to be something which works for everybody, all the stakeholders. And after 2 meetings in a space of 2 or 3 days, in the third meeting, I called all of them in my room and I said, now nobody goes home. All the sparring parties were in that room. Nobody will leave till you have all resolved to find a solution. And I'm happy to report to you, there were the international investors tried to talk about Singapore time and the United States time difference, and we can't decide across the table and whatnot. And I said, I'm available only till tonight or tomorrow morning, or as long as you are in this room. As soon as this meeting gets over, I'm out of it. After that, your investment is worth zero. The private investor was told he'll have to leave the management of the company. Sikkim government was advised that you may have to take over the company in order to resolve the problem and bring in the additional equity. They didn't have the money, so we provided the money through a future monetization of their free power that they would get out of hydro. I won't get into more detail. But the bottom line is the decision was taken that you have to sit in this room, solve the problem, and then you go out of that room. May not be the most ethical or the right way to do it, but I thought 9,000 crore rupees going down the tube, which is national waste. It is ultimately going to be your and my money. Because if the banking sector suffers that NPA, it's 6,000 crores down the tube. If the 6 international investors lose confidence in India, it's future investments getting affected to India. If that hydro project remains incomplete, the entire area will suffer, the local area, because an incomplete project is worse than anything else. It actually damages the ecology and the environment more than anything else. And of course, the need for 1200 megawatt of sustainable renewable hydropower, which will serve now the country for probably 200 years. And I'm happy to report to you, work started within a couple of months of that meeting, and before the end of this fiscal, that plant is going to start operating and generating electricity. But in each of these, and we keep getting files all the time. In fact, I've said it before, the day I became minister and the first few days after that, at an average I would get about 100 to 110 files between the 3 ministries. The 4th only came in July. From 104 to 110, I'd taken out the average, that was the kind of numbers that used to be flagged, come up to me every day. And I'm not including parliamentary questions or VIP references of ministers or members of parliament or chief ministers or senior leaders. That we have to take care, we have to see it and read it and reply appropriately. I'm talking of policy files, individual cases and what not have you. I took a decision that I will not resolve a single case in isolation. And I had all the 3 ministries sit down and see what we could delegate out of my office. And I'm happy to report to you that currently in these 3 ministries, I don't get more than 4 or 5 files in a day. Max 5, usually less than 4. We were able to delegate a lot of the powers, but the defining feature was that for every issue that would be flagged off, we would do a root cause analysis. We insisted that we will not try to solve Kiran's problem if she came to me with a problem. We'll understand what caused her the problem. There can only be 2 ways. Either the policy has some lacuna which needs to be set right, or Kiran is not on the right of that issue. But whatever it was resolved through policy or procedure or process, not through trying to resolve Kiran's case. And in the process, if the policy needed some amendment change, it could have helped probably 200, 300 people all across the country. And why should only Kiran get the benefit of knowing me and being able to flag off an issue? So whatever was done in policy. That was widely publicized through websites and mobile apps. I don't know if you are aware of the number of apps I have been able to introduce to bring more and more transparency. In fact, my own aim is that there should be no need for an RTI. Why can we not put everything in public domain? I see no reason why the whole government's activities cannot be in public domain. And I'm making a continuous effort. Every few days, few weeks, I come out with a new app, giving a new dimension. So today, a village that's getting electrified, I'm shortly coming out with a version 2 of Garh, where every household will also be mapped. And I think Shiv Kumar, Mr. Ravi, sorry? Mr. Ravi Kumar, who's the power secretary here, understands the power of technology and how it has helped us to bring in more and more transparency and bring in honesty into the whole system. But this root cause analysis also can only be successful if you can prioritize your work. And that was another important thing. So I realized very early on that unless I solve the coal problem and the transmission problem, I won't be ever able to have enough power in the system. I need fuel and I need to be able to take power to the length and breadth of the country. Having resolved that on priority, we are now focusing on the distribution end, the DISCOM problem. So each one has been taken with a clinical priority. What needs to be done first, what can be handled parallelly, and what needs what level of focus. So, for example, all the work that we do, and technology utilization has been an important part of all our work, is on my mobile phone. So sitting here, you can discuss any aspect of these 4 ministries. If it is something which is work in progress, which has received my attention at any time, my dashboard will be able to take me to that point of that particular division in any of these ministries. And currently, in fact, originally there were some 900 items. So I decided to take out the low priority because it had got too clustered. I just couldn't focus on my dashboard. I have now 501 items on my dashboard, of which 41 are top priority, 220 are high priority, and 240 are medium priority. And each one, as if you can drill down, will have its complete history mapped out with the latest status entered into by the concerned officer. It could be a JS, it could be a chairman or managing director of the company which is meant to fulfill that mission. And prioritizing into different categories has helped us to focus and get outcomes rather than only focus on what we are doing as an outlay. The entire thinking has been changed. So it doesn't matter if I work 1 hour a day or 18 hours a day. What matters is the result that I get out of it. I can give speeches for 18 hours a day and my ministries can suffer. It won't do anybody any good. But if I am able to make sure that even if I work for 1 hour, but my ministries are on track and the outcomes that are expected are being achieved, I think that is what is expected of me as a minister trying to transform, trying to bring in disruptive results in the ministry. Of course, one important aspect has been the partnership with all stakeholders. I've had the finest relationship with every state, with every stakeholder of the power sector. Karnataka is ruled by a state which is a non-BJP state, not ruled by the government of the day at the center. When the coal blocks were cancelled after allegations of corruption and the Supreme Court decided that 204 coal blocks will be cancelled, 6 coal blocks, which were earlier allotted to Karnataka, were cancelled also. And those were located in Maharashtra, which is my home state. Now you can imagine the dilemma I was in. I have editorials and tons of editorials written against me in my home state of Maharashtra for having taken the decision to give those 6 blocks back to Karnataka, so that the power in Karnataka doesn't suffer. Because I'm not a minister of Maharashtra or a minister of the BJP. I'm a minister of the Union of India. And Ravi knows all that we went through in that period. And the amount of, I had headlines in all the newspapers in the Nagpur, Chandrapur, Vidarbha region castigating me for having denied Maharashtra low-cost coal because it would go next door and probably lower cost of power. But I thought in my wisdom that would make good sense. But then Karnataka will have to get coal from even further away. So Karnataka gets it from Maharashtra, Maharashtra gets it from another place which may be a similar distance away. And that way we can equalize the burden on all the states. And it is this partnership or this thinking of oneness with all stakeholders which has helped us get their support, their involvement. I think Karnataka was one of the first states to join the Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, our Uday program to revitalize the distribution sector. And it is this collaborative, cooperative, in some sense even competitive federalism that Prime Minister Modi has been able to inculcate in the working of the Government of India, and which I think is giving good results. Of course, programs can only be as successful as you execute it in a time-bound manner. Innovative financing was another thing which I think was of great use in the working of my ministry. And that's where I think my own education helped me to bring some new thoughts and new ideas. I remember when I first introduced the concept of reverse bidding, whether it is for solar projects, whether it is for the auction of coal blocks, there's a lot of criticism. A lot of doubts were raised. Even reports were written about whether I'm taking the right decision, is it anti-competition and what not have you. Today, I'm happy to share with you, it's being taken up worldwide that more and more people and governments are using reverse bidding when it comes to giving out a government license or a government source. Because the huge, I'll just share 2 examples of how that can make a difference. Innovative financing. The reverse auction, for example, we just had a out for the mining development operation of a coal block that NTPC is going to start working on. The initial bids were in the range of 11,000 to 15,800 crores over the life of the mine, over 24 years. The cost of mining or developing that mine. And then it got into the reverse bidding process. I'm happy to share with you that price, 11,000 to 15,800. So probably in the normal course of things for years in the past, the fellow who quoted 11,000 would have got that contract. And maybe some other people could have also benefited from that contract. But now, we did a reverse bidding, and you'll be happy to know that through competitive bidding in a transparent auction on the computer, that value has fallen to 5,800 crores from 11,000. It's a saving of a clear 5,200 crores for the people of India. That's your saving. It's a future saving that will bring down your electricity bills when NTPC provides you with electricity. And therefore, a great deal of monitoring of whatever we are doing so that we can hold our people accountable has been something which has really helped us scale up our programs, achieve economies of scale, run programs transparently with high degree of honesty and integrity. And no better example to highlight how transparency, honesty and innovative financing coupled with a close monitoring of the program can help success than the LED bulbs program. where India, which used to consume barely 0.2% of the total LED consumed in the world until 2 years ago, today has become a world leader, consuming 16% of the world's LED consumption. 16%. I don't know if Taj uses LED bulbs or no, but then government of the day procure a 7-watt LED Indian rupees. The last bid that we had has discovered a price of 38 rupees, a fall of 88%. And it's a 9-watt bulb against a 7-watt bulb. The specifications are tighter and stricter than what it was 2 years ago. And any second guesses on who the supplier at 38 rupees is going to be? The world's largest lighting company, Philips.